Good evening, everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. I'm Shivani Gupta. You're watching the Super Saturday debate. The political face-off has escalated between the Delhi government and the centre over the issue of who controls bureaucrats. After an SC verdict giving the power to the elected government of Delhi, the centre issued an ordinance yesterday giving powers back effectively to the Delhi LG. The centre, through this ordinance, has created a National Capital Civil Services Authority to decide on postings and transfers of civil servants, which will also include the Delhi Chief Minister. But Arvind Kejriwal and the Aam Aadmi Party are not happy. The former hit out at the centre, calling the ordinance quote, a slap on the face of Delhiites. Kejriwal further said the central government wants to stall Delhi government's work in the national capital, and therefore this is happening. Let me also break down what the centre has said. As far as the judgment itself is concerned, the centre has moved a review plea in the Supreme Court to review its verdict on the control of services. Now, centre has said Parliament did not intend for services to be applicable to union territories in India. The Constitution never contemplated a separate service cadre for union territories. It also added that DANIX is a feeder cadre for the IAS with common recruitment and is under the Ministry of Home Affairs. Adjudicating on services without considering action of centre and Parliament is an error, their plea also says. And it also says appointments and transfers under Delhi administration are made as per rules by President through the LG. We'll get you more with our guests in just a bit.
इस तरह से सरेआम जनतंत्र को कुचलना, सुप्रीम कोर्ट को वो दिखाना, ये सही नहीं है। हम इसके खिलाफ सुप्रीम कोर्ट में या वो डालेंगे, इस ऑर्डिनेंस के खिलाफ सुप्रीम कोर्ट जाएंगे।
सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने अपने फैसले में कहा कि वहां पर प्रशासन के लिए कोई विशेष कानून भारत के संविधान के शेड्यूल 42 के अंतर्गत नहीं है। भारतीय जनता पार्टी इस डिसीजन का स्वागत करती है कि एक अध्यादेश जो लाया गया है उसके कई कारण हैं, और जिस प्रकार से अरविंद केजरीवाल कार्य कर रहे थे, और हमें ये नहीं भूलना चाहिए कि दिल्ली जो है वो देश की राजधानी है। यहाँ कोई भी घटनाक्रम होता है ना, उसका असर ना सिर्फ देश में बल्कि विदेशों में पड़ता है।
किसी भी राज्य की सरकार की ताकत छीनी नहीं जा सकती है कि अगर केंद्र सरकार को ही सारी ताकत देनी होती तो इस देश के संविधान निर्माता एक संघीय ढांचा क्यों बनाते?
Let's go across to our guests joining us. Shivam Chhabra from the BJP, Reena Gupta from the Aam Aadmi Party, Onika Mehrotra is a Congress spokesperson. I'm also joined by Ashwini Dubey, who's an advocate in the Supreme Court. Before I go across to our political panelists, let me just go across to the lawyer on the show. Ashwini Dubey, the centre is very categorical that this judgment by the court is faulty, by the Supreme Court Constitution bench, in fact. And it says that it flouts Article 1 of the Constitution of India that defines the territory of India as comprising of states and union territories and nothing else. So by inserting a special sui generis or a unique new class category for Delhi, that is erroneous. In defining this new and unique status of Delhi, as the court did while giving this judgment, the court has created a new class of territory that did not exist till now and is contrary to the constitutional provisions. Now, this is a very strong take by any government and by the central government challenging the Supreme Court order. What is your take on what the argument of the central government is? That Delhi is like other union territories and union territories were never meant to have control of services.
There are services which has been bifurcated in the National Capital Territory of Delhi Act. The three components were already bifurcated: the police, land, and public order. Apart from that, if we see the judgment of the Constitution bench, the conclusion says, Shivani, that the Parliament has legislative competence over all matters in List 2 and List 3 in relation to National Capital Territory of Delhi.
Yes.
In including the entries which have been kept out of the legislative domain of National Capital Territory of Delhi by virtue of Article 239 AA, subclause 3 and subclause A. Now, the second is that the more powers has been conferred on the parliament. The judgment also says, the constitutional provision also says, and Article 1, which very candidly you have referred here, that also says. And since there is a power, so 239 AA, which talks about the powers which is to be given to the National Capital Territory of Delhi and Puducherry, but there is a proviso. Proviso says that is subject to the provisions of the Constitution. Legislative Assembly shall have power to make the law, but the parliament to have a power to legislate it. So since parliament within its wisdom have legislated this ordinance, but now the only thing, the essential legal test which has to be seen by the Supreme Court, A, that whether the ordinance which has been brought is within the competence of the Honorable Supreme Court and can it be judicially reviewed, B, whether it violates the basic structure of the Constitution, and C, whether while drafting and for promulgating this ordinance, the judgment of the Supreme Court was not kept in the mind, because the Supreme Court categorically says that the principle of collective responsibility extend to the responsibility of officers who in turn report to the ministers.
Okay. There are two issues here, Ashwini, as you rightly said, but for the benefit of my viewers, let me bifurcate those issues. One is the issue of the ordinance, and ordinance, of course, the Aam Aadmi Party has announced they will challenge in court as expected. The other is the review by the central government of the judgment itself that I'm referring to. Reena Gupta, let me come to you. I know you're going to challenge this ordinance. The government maintains that even in that judgment that was given by the Supreme Court, it mentioned that the parliament has the authority to legislate on any and every matter related to the Delhi, to the National Capital Region. And the government also says that Article 239 AA of the Constitution provided an assembly to Delhi was meant to address local aspirations, but in no way it was intended to give overriding control of the UT to the local government over the existing control of the union government. How do you respond?
Shivani, I have read the ordinance, I have read the judgment. I think the Chief Justice was actually anticipating this. So if you read the order, he says three things very clearly. That India is a federal country. So the union government has some powers and the state government has some powers. And this is the federal nature of the country. You can't give all the powers to the central government.
But Delhi is not a state.
Can I complete, Shivani? Please allow me to complete, and then you can interject as much as you want. I know Delhi is not a state. Everybody knows Delhi is not a full state. So federal structure is number one. Number two, the will of the people is supreme. Number three, an elected government cannot function if the bureaucracy, if the officials are not accountable to the elected government. So these are the three things which the Supreme Court has very clearly laid out in its order. Now, whatever the central government is saying by way of this ordinance, they presented all of this to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court did not listen to them. Why did the central government wait for the Supreme Court to go on vacation and get this ordinance through? Not only wait, in the middle of the night, they got this judgment out. They got this ordinance out because they themselves know that as soon as the Supreme Court comes back in July, this ordinance will be thrown out. In fact, Shivani, now on your channel, I actually want to tell all of these want to be Tanashahs of the country that I am tearing this ordinance, which is what the Supreme Court is going to do, tear it and throw it in the dustbin. Because this ordinance will not hold the scrutiny of Supreme Court. And if the Bharatiya Janata Party cannot win an election in Delhi, Delhi is such a tiny, small state. Why are they after Delhi? Why can't they just rule well in all the other states where they have been elected?
All right.
Let us please govern Delhi. We are doing a pretty good job. And the people of Delhi have thrown you out of the MCD. They've thrown you out of the Vidhan Sabha. And if you really want to show your might, why don't you just get into the Delhi Legislative Assembly? Why have a Legislative Assembly? You guys are known to do whatever you want to do. Get rid of the Legislative Assembly. make it into a normal union territory.
All right.
Just get
Reena, I'll come back to you. Let me just take opening comments from all of our guests. Let me also go across to Onika Mehrotra of the Congress Party. Reena made an important point. There's an elected government, and there is a reason there's an elected government. And the Supreme Court did talk about how the legislative and executive control to a certain extent, till a certain level, on the services and the bureaucrats too for the day-to-day functioning should go with the elected government. As I mentioned earlier, the central government has objected to this, saying that there is no special status for Delhi as a union territory. There is, of course, Puducherry that has a legislative assembly as well as a union territory. But I want to highlight another point now. She asked, why are you after Delhi? Now, this is what the central government's argument is, that one, Delhi as a union territory is by deliberate constitutional design. Its status as a UT and as capital of India calls for governance by the Union of India rather than any other entity. They also talk about how, this is an area where dignitaries from other nations visit, and it is in national interest. Highest possible standards should be maintained in the administration and governance of the national capital, etc. So you get my point. They've argued that Delhi is cannot be viewed as any other union territory. This is also the capital of the country. Onika Mehrotra, where do you stand on this?
So there are two parameters to it. A, BJP has this characteristic of demeaning any elected government. You have seen them doing it as a past track record wherever it suits them. B, I would like to categorically tell you here, the same Delhi, the same union territory, nothing has changed. Since we also went power for last 15 years consecutively during the Sheila Ji regime. Didn't we know the rules and regulation? Didn't we follow it? So the rules were always the same. The land, law, order, police was always under the central government.
But here the issue is services. Onika, during Sheila Dikshit's government, there was no battle over the services control.
Why? Why, may I ask? Because there was deliberation, there was discussion, and there was a communication between the LG and the elected government. We never went and cried, oh, we are elected, you are not allowed to work. You have to go to the LG and consult with him. Where is the harm, may I ask? If you say that you have come for the benefit of the people of Delhi. If you're carrying the tag कि दिल्ली वालों को नुकसान हो रहा है and Delhi is under, reeling under these losses, then go take a step forward. If you have the competency and if you know you're right, let alone your Aapka Niti, let alone your renovation of the Chief Minister's house, we are not debating on that.
Yeah.
But if you think that this is what is the benefit of the people of Delhi, take a step forward, go and meet the LG. How many times will they refuse you? Once, twice, then go to the public. Oh, look, we're not able to do any work. If you are going to always have your, barbs ahead and, fighting
so you're saying
head on, ultimately, your end product and the motive behind it is very, very clear then that you have not come here to, for the benefit of people.
So you're saying the AAP government has been
grab power.
No, so you're saying the AAP government has been needlessly confrontational, and that has been one of the things that has been a hallmark, because LG versus Delhi government fights have happened throughout their tenure. But here the AAP could argue that we won this legal battle fair and square, and then this ordinance has come in, and it's been a long-standing battle. But I want to ask you,
the BJP.
No, but I want to ask you, Onika Mehrotra, the government also says that, listen, we've not brought it to the central government's domain. We've formed a panel which will have the chief minister. It will also have 2 officers of the National Capital Territory of Delhi. So actually, they've gone for a, let's say, a consultative process. Do you agree with this panel or no?
See, I have always been of the opinion that during Sheila Ji regime, this was exactly what was happening.
Okay.
There wasn't a panel, but there was already discussion. So now, because the discussion not taking place, let there be a panel. But intervening in an elected government's performance is also a hindrance. And BJP enjoys doing that thoroughly under the pretext of law, legalities, constitution. They've been getting up with all kind of adhyadesh middle of the night.
Okay,
Prime Minister
all right.
Modi is known for that. One fine, 8 p.m. he comes and declares no 2000 note or no 500 currency. So this is what is happening with the central government.
Let me just quickly bring in Shivam Chhabra of the BJP as well. You've heard all of the sides, the 2 political sides of the national capital. The argument here will be, one, that, you did this post the SC verdict, even though you claim that this is inconsistent with the intent of the Honorable Supreme Court, because you formed a panel and all of the members are from the National Capital Territory region, so you've honored it in spirit. But the argument will be that this is a battle that was won fair and square legally by the Delhi government, and you've sought to take back that legal victory through an ordinance.
Shivani, I want to make it very clear, and I don't know how many of us probably read that judgment in the right spirits. Unfortunately, yes, politics is always going to be there. Arvind Kejriwal masters the art of doing politics and not doing welfare for the people of Delhi. He will do everything to be the victim. He will do everything to fall into that comfortable kind of situation where he will probably try to project himself as the victim of what all is happening. But unfortunately, facts cannot differ. What is important to see is the para 35, what we are referring to is falls rightly into the spirit of the fact that yes, the appointment of the bureaucracy here in Delhi, we can make a law on it, and that is how we brought the ordinance into the place. As far as the timing part is concerned, what Reena ji was probably referring to is that I don't know how these stories come up, and maybe they are again master of creating some stories every night before that the vacations are going to happen and July coming up and what not. But there's nothing factual in it. That's the fact. Okay. So the ordinance has been brought just in order to ensure that something wrong cannot happen right from here, because the instances which have been in the past in the leadership of the chief minister, and I think I would say a dictator for that matter, because he has been probably charged with manhandling the chief secretary.
Okay,
of Delhi.
I was going to come to exactly that.
Can I respond?
Yes. I was going to come to exactly that. Reena Gupta, what has also happened is that since this judgment by the Supreme Court, you've been on a spree to transfer officers, and you've said it openly that we will do so. Expect a wholesale change in Delhi bureaucracy. But what has happened is that there have been 8 to 10, I think, complaints against particularly your services minister for bad, poor behavior and handling of bureaucrats. Now, how is that justified?
Shivani, if there are complaints against somebody, I would say yes, please set up an inquiry. But let me tell your viewers what is an ordinance. And I'm reading the legal definition. An ordinance is a temporary law created by the government when there is an urgent situation or an emergency. So can Bharatiya Janata Party tell us, enlighten us, what was the emergency that they had to go through this route of ordinance? If they really wanted to challenge the judgment of the Supreme Court, and this is a 5-judge constitutional bench, then they should have just waited. Okay. Why did they have to create an ordinance for this?
Okay, let him respond. Let Shivam Chabra respond to that. Let him respond to that. Yes, what was the urgency?
This is like mincing with words. I am not trying to challenge any judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court here. What I am trying to challenge is the kind of conduct the Aam Aadmi Party's Chief Minister, Arvind Kejriwal, his ministers have been cheating with the officers of Delhi government.
But you are challenging the Supreme Court judgment through this ordinance.
And I think what made Reena Gupta is minister for that matter
is in complete violation of the Supreme Court judgment.
Open an officer's office right at 3 a.m. in the morning, probably take out some files and do some photocopies.
These are all
right
stories and Manohar Kahani written in the Bharatiya Janata Party office. Nothing like this is happening, Mr. Shivam Chabra. These are all Manohar Kahanis that we know you are all masters of writing. You've been writing these Manohar Kahanis for a very long time. Please allow us to govern Delhi. Please allow us to do good work for the people of Delhi. The 2 crore people who have elected us. Why don't you take the challenge and contest the elections, win the elections, and then come back to power?
One by one, please. Okay, 1 second. I just want to. This is a complex legal issue. 1 second. Can I just have their audios put down, please? This is a complex legal issue. This is a complex political issue. I want to go across to the lawyer one more time. I have a very specific question, Ashwini Dubey, and the question is: will this ordinance fall foul of the Supreme Court judgment? Now, the centre believes that obviously they had the right to make this ordinance. They have said that except for any subject referred to in entry 41 of list 2 state list of 7th schedule, on any matter connected therewith and incidental thereto, the Legislative Assembly of Delhi shall have the powers to make the law. And then, of course, on any matter over and above that, the centre has the power to make the law. And this is also mentioned in the Supreme Court judgment. It has also been brought to my notice that there is a precedent in judgments that while the legislature cannot directly overrule a court judgment, it can retrospectively remove its foundation to make it ineffective. On those two foundations, one, that the central government has the power to legislate on any and all matters pertaining to Delhi, and that, you know, there is a judgment in the past that yes, retrospectively you can make a judgment ineffective, as may be the case in this case. Do you believe that this ordinance will fall foul, or will it stand the test of time when it becomes the law as well? Yeah.
Ultimately, Shivani, one thing which is to be examined by the Honorable Court, the essential legal test. Essential legal test means that if this ordinance has been brought and there was an emergent situation, as the Constitution also says, that the emergent situation to bring this ordinance at this point of time, just after 10 days of passing of the judgment, then that emergent situation Supreme Court look into. Because in past, Shivani, just for US viewers, that the Supreme Court has quashed the setting of a national tax tribunal. That tribunal was also brought into brought by virtue of an ordinance. So for Supreme Court's power to quash the ordinance is concerned, that is vested with the Supreme Court. But
what about this ordinance?
So far as this ordinance is concerned, this ordinance has been taken into consideration, has been passed by having the constitutional powers, because the Constitution gives an overriding power to Parliament to make laws or any
when it comes to the National Capital Territory of Delhi. I've run out of time. I do thank all of our guests for joining us. This is a battle. We don't know whether it has been settled by this ordinance now or another chapter of this fight over services has kick-started. We'll wait and see. More breaking updates are coming in. Indian Air Force sources are telling CNN News 18 that weeks after the crash in Rajasthan, the Indian Air Force has grounded its entire MiG-21 fleet till a probe is done. The Indian Air Force has planned to phase out all remaining squadrons of the MiG-21s by 2025 in any case. My colleague Akash Sharma is joining us. Akash, this seems to be like a big step taken by the Indian Air Force.
Yes, and this is in the wake of the incident that happened on May 8th, where we lost 3 civilians, in fact, and this was a training sortie where the pilot had to eject, and it was because of some technical problem. And in fact, MiG-21 Bison, which was used in this particular incident, was crashed at that point in time. But now we are learning that Indian Air Force has basically decided to carry out checks, and till those checks, these fighter planes will not fly. This is a big update, and Shivani, this is important to mention that currently we have 3 squadrons of MiG-21 Bison. Bison is basically the upgraded version of MiG-21. As far as these MiG-21s are concerned, so we know about the sketchy records of these airplanes, but Indian Air Force is otherwise also planning to phase out these aircrafts by 2025. But as of now, till the checks are completed, these aircrafts, in fact, will be grounded.
Okay. And any idea, Akash, how long a check of this sort can take?
So it's a routine process, and in fact, it will be, per unit basis. So, for example, in case one aircraft has been cleared or one aircraft has undergone some sort of checks and it has been given a certificate as to clearance certificate, then the particular aircraft can fly. But as of now, the 3 squadrons, one squadron generally consists of 17 to 20 aircraft. Yes. We have 3 squadrons, and all of these airplanes will not fly till the checks are completed.
All right, Akash Sharma, thanks a lot for bringing us those updates. Well, as the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir gears up for an upcoming G20 summit, security forces are on high alert. We leave you with this report by my colleague Arunima from On Ground.
About 50 meters away from Pakistani territory, at the first post on the international border between India and Pakistan, the forces deployed, the troops deployed, are all alert. Intelligence suggests that Pakistan will try and disrupt the G20 summit that is slated, the G20 working group that is slated to happen in Srinagar. Intelligence suggests that infiltration attempts are on across the line of control. Attempts are also being made on the international border. And this fence that we are showing you is part of the international boundary between India and Pakistan. BSF troops are keeping an eye. This is a very challenging aspect of the deployment, because this is also an area where there are a lot of vegetations. There are areas where farming happens. You can see on the left, these are farmlands where farmers come out and they want to cultivate, they want to harvest. But right on the other side is Pakistan trying to radicalize them or trying to influence them to work against their own country. So amidst these two challenges, how is it that the BSF, the Border Security Force, is trying to navigate their duties as far as safeguarding the border is concerned, and also ensuring that the people here are not put to any kind of inconvenience? There are gates that have been put up on this international border, and on these gates, there are proper frisking that is done ahead of G20. The frisking, the checking has increased that much more. What we are told is that these BSF personnel who are deployed check the machinery, the equipment, and check the people, the farmers who are going to harvest or going to cultivate these farmlands as well. Pakistan, like I said, is just 50 meters from here. There are cobra wires that have been put along this fencing.